Nir, thanks for joining. And we are fresh off the announcement, the very exciting announcement that Foundation Capital has led your Series A. It's been a long journey together to getting to this point, and it's been so wonderful meeting you, getting to know more about you as a person, and obviously about Sedric. That's been a real treat for us. And now we're very excited to be partners with you. How does an entrepreneur get from going to high school in some town and some whatever to college to a job to another job to the idea of founding a company to founding the specific company? Think of it maybe as like your entrepreneurial journey.
So first off, right after my studies, I'm an information system engineer. I used to work as an engineer at this software company that supported heavy regulated companies to keep up with all the changes. And this is where I discovered the potential of regulation technology to support these kind of businesses. And that bug kept with me. And then a few years ago, when I've decided to join forces with my co-founder Eyal Peleg, we've basically detected a few macro trends that are now taking a very big part in the story of what we do. The first one was the fragmentation in the financial services sector, which we refer as fintechs, next-gen finance, and the complex dynamic that they have with their banking partners. The other one was the increasing complexity and scrutiny around compliance that is only getting more complex and more scrutinized as time flies. On the other side of the equation, with Eyal backgrounds as a data scientist, one of the leading ones in Tel Aviv, but I'm biased, we basically realized that there are new capabilities now being released when AI reached that tipping point. And these macro trends basically led us to try and tackle this compliance challenge for financial services from a completely different angle. And this is what led us to start Cedric.
Nir, we're super excited. You mentioned some of this kind of new technology. Before we get into all that, share a little bit about the state of the union today. How does compliance typically work at large banks, lenders, debt collectors, things like that today, kind of in a pre-Cedric world?
I mean, the compliance array ranges from manual processes to semi-automated fragmented solutions. But if you think about the compliance officer and the increasing scrutiny and complexity and increasing responsibility that they carry on their shoulders, the tech stack that they have today does not support them in that mission that they are responsible for. Think about all the different interactions, all the different events that they need to make sure that adhere to the policies that they set. They don't have the stack today. And usually what happens, even in the more advanced compliance arrays, is that they sample. The problem with that approach is that it leaves the blind spot so big so that what happens if the important events are not part of this 10% that they've decided to sample? Also, the time that it will take them to detect a violation is so long so that when they detect it, the escalation already happened. We want to change this equation from responsive to being proactive and preventive, making sure that the policy that they've set are actually being executed in reality. And every violation that might put the business at risk needs to be captured and mitigated in real time. We're connecting the dot between the policy and the actual execution of the policy.
Very cool. So if I'm understanding you correctly, I guess in other words, compliance is moving from a must do, a kind of a check the box and a huge risk and cost kind of sink to maybe something of a competitive advantage for people that can adapt to AI kind of quickly, right?
Currently, AI proved a huge potential, but there are some infrastructure solutions that are missing in order to really enable these organizations to leverage this technology to its maximum potential. And while this technology is evolving, the infrastructure to enable the adoption of such technologies is evolving as well. I think that after completing this transition, by letting these financial services to basically implement these infrastructure solutions. We want to create the next generation of compliance officers that doesn't just say no. We want to enable them to say yes, but to the right direction, and to navigate their peers and employees to the path of where they can still grow their businesses, but again, without breaking anything or jeopardizing the consumer protection or privacy of their clients. When you're thinking about compliance, especially when it comes to consumer protection, which is our focus today, is that what used to be perceived as a burden or the necessary evil, we want to change that. Because if you can prove to your client that you are adhering to these rules that were designed to protect them, and if we were able to create that solution that making it easier for organizations just to be okay without jeopardizing growth, we basically broke the equation of growth equals risk. Now we can grow faster without breaking things, and that's a win-win for everyone: the regulators, the financial services, and us, the end consumers, at the end of the day, where we can feel more protected.
Compliance officers by personality and risk officers are generally more conservative and probably skeptical individuals. And you've sat with a lot of very senior level executives across large corporations. What's the one thing that you find that you show them that kind of gives them the equivalent of like the chat GPT moment we all had probably a little bit more than a year ago now?
When they see these evaluations taking place in real time, like actually uploading a new content that we have never seen before, letting the algorithms to do their thing and just share the output in their language based on their tailored requirements, this is something that is just looks like magic to many of them. And frankly, despite the fact that I'm doing it every day, I'm still excited to see how the system performs in real time for these kinds of materials.
First of all, that must be an amazing moment. Is it a challenge that you actually have something that delivers and you're selling against the promise of companies who might have a corporate relationship but actually don't have the solution, but are actually saying they do or representing that they actually do? Are you seeing that today?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just like any other software, the make or buy decision is a hard one. I think that businesses needs to decide what is their core business and to focus on making the one that are directly connected to their core business. I also think that regulation is very dynamic, and most of these financial services are in financial services, not into tech. Sometimes it will be a very long play that not necessarily right for them to make the investment internally.
Some of the classic challenges that all entrepreneurs face, incumbents throwing out FUD, selling into organizations who themselves might have to downsize if they adopt the technology, which means nobody wants to go lay off or fire people in the organization, people they know, people they have personal relationships with. Um, Selling into a regulated industry, which you've described you do. Uh, so it sounds like you're not facing anything unusual that any other software company who's selling into large corporations face. Was that fair?
Yes, I think other than the fact that selling to a compliance officer, which is in nature a very risk averse persona, and what we've experienced before we managed to cross that chasm, that you cannot just raise the flag of the innovator and get a chance. They don't care. They only care about value, and they care about not taking risk. And what's interesting in the momentum that we were seeing recently is that once you manage to prove yourself, it doesn't matter how you manage to, like, what bunny you manage to pull out of your sleeve to get this chance. But once you cross that chasm and you're becoming that new standard, suddenly all these the risk averse buyers that decided to sit aside, now finding themselves in the risk zone, needs to move back into the safe zone, which is leveraging the latest proved technology to put themselves out of risk.
Obviously the product has come a long way just in the short time that Sedric has been around. The cutting edge is kind of moving so quickly that I know you guys are constantly pushing out new features and updates. What are some of the kind of most recent features that you and your customers are getting most excited about?
Our ability to analyze marketing materials across the entire journey of the campaign, from the creation of the material to publishing it to the ongoing monitor across the different channels that it's going to be promoted. That's a very exciting one where we're seeing lots of traction from different financial services organizations we're dealing with, from small fintechs to top tier banks that are interested in that solution. And that basically fits into our wider strategy of supporting the entire life cycle of the compliance array, from having the policy, enforcing it, taking mitigation actions, and also support the audit layer that comes last.
So Nir, you're sitting here today, the wind is at your back. Obviously you've raised this big Series A. We've announced it now. 5x year over year growth, I think, is the number that we can share. What's kind of keeping you guys motivated, and what's going to continue the momentum, most importantly, into the rest of 24 and beyond?
I think it's a combination of multiple factors. The first one is the backwind of the regulation that is becoming more complex. It's changing, and every change management creates friction and more pressure as organizations need to propagate and basically introduce these new processes. And the other one is the trend that I've mentioned before regarding that movement from the risk zone to the safe zone. We like to think of Sedric as a sleeping pill that is giving these compliance officer 1 more hour a day to sleep, to be a little bit more peaceful.
This has been great. Before we close, I want to turn it over to you. What should potential prospects know about you guys? Where can customers find you in the next few months? Where are we hiring? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so these are very exciting times at Sedric. We grew in 5x in volume, and we're expecting to double the team in the next 12 months. That's basically meaning that we're hiring everywhere, both in our Tel Aviv office for R&D positions and in our New York-based office, both for remote and in the office positions, go-to-market, R&D, and more. If you're ever coming to Money 2020 or coming to the city, feel free to send me a note, and I'll be more than happy to meet up.
Nir, thank you so much for joining us today. As more companies start to embrace Sedric and what you're doing, you're going to start to see some of the magnitude change that you've been talking about. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me. We're looking forward to see how this journey evolves together.
Cheers to that.